Hello, everybody. It's Shamika. I'm back twice in one day. So I am really on it today. So I'm excited to share a couple of things. So the last time I jumped in with you guys, I was just kind of chatting about my experience at TribeCon this past week. But today we're gonna get some good information. And the irony of the times and the moment and what's happening right now is interesting. And that's why I picked the topic about who moved my cheese. So if you haven't read that book, check it out. Google search it. It's a very popular book and it's most relevant in this moment than any other time than I've thought of, which is probably last year, especially from a healthcare staffing perspective. So, a lot of agency owners, even yesterday, I read a post about someone stating that, how can my business be competitive if I have to compete with grocery stores that are offering the same amount of money that I'm offering now to my employees, or I'm losing employees to grocery stores, was the question. And my question to that person was, what are you doing different? If we haven't learned anything from the pandemic, because there's so many life lessons in the pandemic, my question to business owners is, if you're running your business the way you ran it a year ago, you're not doing something right. You have to shift and make the shift in focus to address what's happening in our culture now, but also to make sure that you're meeting the needs of the people. So, for most of us, the people that we work with are healthcare workers, healthcare professionals. So doing your processes and your steps and everything that you did before the same way you did last time or 2 years ago isn't going to work. And that's primarily part of the problem that many staffing agencies are struggling, especially those who are smaller. Right. So if I had a process where I had people complete a lot of paperwork, a lot of steps, go to a lot of systems, and have to communicate a lot via email, that's not something that people want to do anymore. And I can't blame them. As a second career nurse, I found that the process for getting into a healthcare related job to be very cumbersome. And there's so many apps and resources that are rolling out because of that, because I think they too understand that it shouldn't take this much. Like it shouldn't take 100 sheets of paper and 10 steps and 15 pages of information to make stuff happen. But what I wanted to really chat about is what's happening now. So part of the reason that I'm here, one, fourth quarter goals on YouTube Live again. And part of the reason that I'm here on YouTube again is because Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp is down. And it's been down for several hours. So I live on the East Coast. So I was first made aware of it probably about 2 o'clock. And I thought it was temporary. And honestly, I thought it was on my end. But it's one of those things that you always knew was going to happen. And I think a lot of people are being hit hard because of it. And one of the things that I've shared with so many NOSAs time and time again is, hey, you need to spread out your social media, get out there on those platforms where you don't necessarily spend a lot of time, like YouTube, like TikTok, because people want to hear about what your agency is and what you have to offer. And not only agency or potential employees, but there can be potential clients out there on platforms like LinkedIn. So if you haven't checked out that video, there is a video here. Not sure where it pops up for you guys are here that talks about using LinkedIn to get your clients to provide staffing services. So either way, it's a challenge. It's something that you want to take into consideration. And you really want to sit back and kind of say, now what? Who moved the cheese? Now what? What are you going to do if this isn't something that kind of lasts just like for the day or for the night or for like a day or two? How are you going to reach your applicants? How are you going to be able to connect with them? Do you have a plan in place? Much like with the COVID-19, no one knew it was coming. And we definitely didn't anticipate it would hit as hard as it did. And for many of us, it required us to put in place processes that we hadn't thought about at all. And it's still a challenge. So it's a challenge in obtaining staff who want to stay. There's a challenge in working with clients who may or may not be able to afford the services that you want to offer. So, a couple of things that I want to share as far as I could take away, because this particular YouTube Live isn't going to be as long as the last one, is to just kind of anticipate the unexpected. So as we continue into, I guess this is what, 4 hours later without that particular social media platforms. If you're not on the other ones, consider moving over a little bit. Spend some time, part of my fourth quarter goals, and it's so ironic, was to get on YouTube more. I have a small following here. I'm not always sure what to put out there for you guys. If you have any suggestions, definitely drop them in the comments. But now that I'm forced to be here, I like it. It's not that bad. It's definitely a different interaction and different level audience. But if it's to get more information out there for those who want to be a part of that process, for sure. I'll work on some topics tonight and kind of keep the momentum going, and join some other platforms like Twitter. I've been spending some time on Twitter, figuring it out. TikTok. I love TikTok. So I think it's a personal preference, but there are hundreds and thousands of nurses on TikTok and healthcare professionals on TikTok. So TikTok has its place in our community. And then more than that, try something new. So kind of the concept of staying in your box is happening in real time. The box we used yesterday doesn't work today. Now what? Or your box is a circle. So how are you going to make it fit? How are you going to make the necessary adjustments so that you can reach your applicants? You can communicate with the people that you need to, because not only is Facebook down, Messenger is down as well. Which is equally as disappointing, because I use Messenger a little bit more than I use Facebook. But either way, how are you going to communicate? How are you going to communicate with your staff or potential staff? Now what? And finally, see this as an opportunity to learn, to grow, to stretch yourself. As I mentioned before, when I talked about the post that I saw on Facebook last night, what do you do when you're at a place where you're not sure what to do? You do something different. You do something that you think other people wouldn't do. And some of that looks like, hey, you may offer massages. You may offer paid time off. Those aren't traditional things offered to healthcare professionals. But if it makes sense, then try it, then do it. It's not worth not trying in this particular climate, something that's a little bit untraditional or you haven't seen yet. Typically, those are the things that kind of move quickly. It's something that you haven't seen, or it's something that's being used successfully in other industries are always great places to start. There's always so much conversation around, giving pieces of your agency to your employees, profit sharing. That's a great tool. It does take some time to figure it out and make it make sense, but that allows employees to be invested in your agency beyond the clock in and the clock out. Because at the end of the day, for most healthcare staffing agencies, one agency isn't all that different than the next. So you're not really seeing like large differences from agency to agency, as much as you're just like little tweaks, little conveniences, little prizes, little appreciations from agency to agency. So if you want yours to stand apart, you're probably going to have to do something big. So definitely feel free to drop in the comments any topics that you want me to talk about, because I'm going to jump on here again tomorrow, as well as any ideas that you have or you're looking into trying with your healthcare staffing agency to move it along and kind of move it in a place that'll allow you to be more competitive in the market. And lastly, when I say competition isn't always about money, because from agency to agency, the amount of money that they can provide more than the next one can sometimes be small. $10, $20. To me, that's small. But the experience and how the person feels about working for your company will last a lot longer. So consider that when you're thinking about what you want to do next. All right, it's Shamika with the NOSA Group, and I am going to tap out. Thank you guys for hanging out with me, not once, but twice today. And I hope you guys have a rest of your week